Hi, and welcome to Sci-Fi Cross Sections. This is a podcast dedicated to everything sci-fi, be it film, television, books, video games. We'll talk about it, we'll dissect it, and tell you what we think about it. Welcome to episode 12, is it, Mark?
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. I think it's episode 12, maybe.
Lost episode.
Mayhaps. And today we are talking about The Thing, which came out in 1982. Who's here today?
Mark?
Matt?
Jason?
It's your boy, Wes Craven, director of that thingy.
Andrew W.S. Miller.
Yeah, it's me, Andrew. How are you?
And it's me, Colin. Jason, could you give a quick and concise synopsis of The Thing?
The Thing. So, The Thing is a science fiction horror film set in Antarctica, involving researchers at a research base, but they're blue-collar researchers, very much in the alien mold.
Long hair, beard.
Yeah. Like a lot of us in this room right now. The movie starts in medias res. We don't know what's going on, but we see a helicopter chasing a wolf-like dog into the U.S. research facility. They seem like the people that are in the helicopter are they do not speak English very well, if at all, and start opening fire at the workers in the U.S. research base, prompting the U.S. research base workers to kill the remaining person. Anyway, some stuff happens involving a thing, and they are left to kind of decide who potentially may be the alien menace and who is still human, which leads to some infighting and questions in regards to who is who. Do they appear to be who they say they are, or are they something else? Have they become a thing? The movie goes through several different scenarios in trying to discover who may or may not be infected, ultimately leading to the end scene, which I think is one of the best scenes in a horror film ever, with two of the main characters standing together in the darkness, looking at each other on the burning base, and you don't really know who's who, and you won't know who's who. And that's how the movie ends. That's The Thing. Yeah. I don't synopsize, but I feel like that was better than I
feel like
better than I usually
Well,
do.
normally you're actually just reenacting, the movie scene by scene, but that was actually pretty good.
Okay.
I liked it. I liked that you focused on the dog too.
I like that.
Nice. Mm-hmm. I just kind of want to start off, and I mean, we've all kind of just grown up with this movie. I would suppose it's about.
We
10,
all just grew up.
Well, it's about 10 years older than most of us here.
I actually was Kurt Russell in the movie.
I had a feeling, but I wasn't going to say anything.
It's true.
I actually played his hair double.
I believe it.
No, I mean, this movie used to scare the shit out of me when I was a little kid.
Rightfully so.
The practical is...
Oh, it's
insane.
If it was CGI, it probably wouldn't have bothered me so much. But because it was all practical effects, it really just bothered the hell out of me. And it wasn't until I was much older that I could watch it and appreciate it for what it actually was. Before it was just a scary movie, but now there's a lot of themes that I've picked up on that I'm older that I didn't really quite get before.
Yeah. I think that's been the thing. That's been the thing with The Thing for me for a very long time, is that as we kind of covered in some of our other discussions of some classic horror movies, being like, Alien, to a lesser extent, Event Horizon, The Thing has a really cool premise. And to me, I love that it's, Antarctica, complete isolation, very, inhospitable environment. It's sub-zero temperatures. It's snowing. They're in the middle of nowhere. And, really, these guys are, their entire existence for however long they're, service would be is the other people that are around them. So you strike up friendships, and there's, I'm sure, a lot of cabin fever and everything else that goes along with being isolated like that, literally being on the moon, more or less, because that's basically what they are. And I thought that was just, not only is the setting really cool, but then what they go ahead and do with it, and they kind of make it where the environment itself is another character. But then you think like, oh, okay, I'm with all these people that are my friends that I can trust. Oh, wait, no, I can't. And to me, that's the genius of the movie. I wish you kind of had more movies that played upon the cast's, maybe mistrust or distrust of each other for some, outside, I guess, reason or some outside influence that kind of comes in and breaks up the dynamics of the group. So that's kind of what I enjoy watching it and kind of being able to bring that out now, because like you said, Colin, when I first saw the movie years and years ago, I was just, monsters, blah, blah, and you couldn't really understand it on that level. So, doing any viewing in the last 5 or 6 years now, you can kind of pick up on those themes, and it's good. It's
honestly the biggest one I took away from it right away was it's sort of just like a critique on McCarthyism, and people are kind of accusing each other of being the thing. And it's usually the person they like least in the group, kind of pointing out
12 Angry Things.
Yeah. Do you ever think of that? Also, as you were talking, it just kind of hit me, but did anyone here see The Hateful Eight?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's kind of like The Thing, if you actually stop and think about it for a little bit.
Yeah. Kind of does the same character examination as like Tarantino, would do. Or I guess Tarantino did the same type of thing as, John Carpenter did.
The Thing.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's cool because, well, to piggyback off that's what really blew me away. So we watch this movie now, and we watch it, admirably. We love the themes of it. We love the setting. We love the effects. We love everything about this movie. It's kind of gone down as not even a cult classic. I would just say it's a classic horror film now.
Yeah.
But when this movie came out, it was panned. It was a critical and commercial failure. And John Carpenter was like really tore up for a long time about, this, because he had so much like creativity that he put into this, and like trying to make it, just his, I'm going to say like passion piece. But at the time it was like his, I'm really proud of this, blah, blah, blah. And it just didn't go over well. And it's interesting to me that in all the intervening years now, it's come to be viewed as this, classic horror movie. When at the time, what was the first thing we just picked out? It was the effects, and how good the effects are, and, how much they're still, to this day, they hold up, almost 40 years later. And we still, like, wow, it's just done so well. But the effects, I was reading reviews from that era, and the effects were criticized for being too good.
Whoa.
They were criticized in a negative way for being too good. They weren't like, oh, this is, wow, it's like reality. It was like, this is disgusting, it's grotesque, it's just too much. And that blew me away, because I think that's one of the things that made the movie hold up through the eras here as we've gone on. Like, it's still extremely well done. It holds up to anything that has been released in this kind of modern era.
And I feel like you need that. You need that grotesque to remind you of the thing itself, because it becomes so entangled in this plot of accusations and defense, and nobody knows what's going on, and it's just this panic between the characters, and then something grotesque happens, and it draws all of the rest of the people back together to deal with it for that moment. And I feel like without that stark contrast, it wouldn't... it would get too sucked up in itself as far as the plot and like the hint towards like McCarthyism and, everybody being at each other's throats and throwing accusations. It would get lost in that and not really get to play upon the sci-fi aspects. So they need that to like pull you back out of it. And I think that's one of my favorite things about it, is that it has such a huge jump back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, you know, it's a lift up from the darkness of like them being at each other's throats, which is funny because it's a monster that's horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Mark? The effects are one of my favorite parts of the movie as well. Growing up, they were, I was fascinated by them. The concept of the movie freaked me out when I was younger, but like the effects were just always really cool to me. They're freaky, and they definitely are unsettling, you know, at any age. But I recently was looking into it. I wish I could remember exactly how it went, but I think it was the basically like apprentice of the effects master for this movie went on to do American Werewolf in London. That was, you know, another one of the most like renowned effects artists.
Oh yeah,
The
Like,
werewolf
that's-
transformation scene in that movie is insane.
absolutely.
So, I mean, yeah, you can definitely see like a distinct influence between like look at these crazy monster transformations. Like you've got people going from normal to there's a big mouth coming out, like that this guy's stomach's a big mouth.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's just seamless. Ugh.
Yeah, and that was kind of, you know, that harkens back to, I guess, the argument to be made for practical effects versus CGI, and, you know, CGI having its place, but also not being, in a lot of cases, a good stand-in for practical, if it can be done practical. We've seen a lot of movies that, you know, have recently come out that have gone back to, in some way, shape, or form, practical effects, and it's been, you know, kind of like a strength of the movie, like, you know, episode 7. Yeah, Mad Max is the ultimate, I think. But like, yeah, you couldn't have done, even though it's not sci-fi, you couldn't. Well, kind of is sci-fi. You couldn't have done Mad Max Fury Road without practical effects. Mm-hmm. No point in even watching that movie. Right. You know, it had to be practical, but you know, to an extent too. Like I just said, like episode 7. You know, there's a lot of that was practical, and you could tell, and it kind of grounded it more. To that end, I feel like if you're making a horror film, if you can have the monster there physically on set for your actors to kind of play off of and react to, and it's not, you know, some guy in a green morph suit running around, or like they're just, okay, imagine this really scary alien dude with, you know, a mouth in its stomach and like little tentacle things, and, you know, if you can actually show the actor that, then, you know, you're going to get a more genuine reaction or a more genuine performance. And that's why I think the movie still holds up, or one of the reasons it still holds up. And it's just, they're very well done effects. You know, they weren't cheesy. I mean, there's practical effects that, if not done well, like, that's just as bad CGI. Yeah. Like, you're not going to believe it. It's a guy in a, you know, monkey suit or something like that, you know. But The Thing, I don't think it's anything like that. I think it's the pinnacle of really high-end, well-done practical effects that still hold up.
The prequel, I haven't seen it, so I can't say how harshly it affects the movie. But I was watching some like behind-the-scenes stuff. They had actually made props and designed everything out and gotten it all set up and ready to go for practical effects for the entire film, and then last minute they decided to just go ahead and CGI it all in. They had fully fleshed out, like, real made practical effects for all of the monsters and stuff, and they just we'll just CGI it, and they exactly replicated all of it in the CGI. It looks identical.
Well,
they just didn't.
I'm glad you brought that up, because if you didn't, I was going to. Because I did a lot of research on that. I read a lot of articles. Because what Mark's referring to is, in 2011, they kind of did a pre-boot. Whereas they were trying to kind of make good on the basic premise of the original 82, The Thing, but also, which I think in a lot of ways is genius, tell the story of the Norwegian base.
Yeah.
So The Thing 2011, if you watch it, it seamlessly goes right into the beginning of the 82 Thing. Like, they recreated everything in that opening credit sequence in the 1982 The Thing. Like, you can literally watch that movie, watch the prequel, and it goes right into it, and everything makes sense. You know, it's not media res anymore. It's, you know, you're just picking up where the story left off, which I think was great. But like you said, and it just blew my mind, not only did they create those practical effects, they filmed them. They filmed the entire movie practical, and when they showed it to the studio executives, and I think it's Warner Brothers, when they showed it to the studio executives, they said, no way, it looks like a bad 80s horror movie. And they they just digitally traced CGI over the top of the practical effects. So every scene you watch in the prequel thing, you are watching a practical effect that has been, you know, doctored, basically, with CGI. And it just kills me because so many things are good about that movie, but that's the one thing that everyone criticized was the CGI, because it doesn't have the same effect. I think a lot of those transformations and things that they did, if they would have kept them practical, they would have had that same type of vibe that the original The Thing did. Like, it wouldn't have been the same because the prequel film is not as good of a movie. Like, the writing is not as good, the atmosphere is not as good, the pacing is not as good. But it would have been more consistent with the original movie had they just stayed the course. But they didn't, and it kills me. And the number one thing you will find if you look that up, if you just Google search The Thing 2011 bad CGI, people have started petitions to the studio to try to get them to release a, you know, practical version of the film. Because it's kind of become a cult thing. Like, people want to see it. They want to see, like, the work prints of it without any CGI, just to see, you know, these effects. And I've seen some set photos that they took. They had hired a company, you know, and they paid them and did everything. And their work was in the film. And, like, they just made these awesome practical effects. Like, they're all slimy and, you know, drippy, and they look just like, you know, something straight out of the 82 original. And you don't see any of that stuff in the finished product. So it's kind of a shame. It's like, because that's the point here. Like, that's why the movie holds up so well, is because they did that, and they did it out of necessity. Who knows if that technology would have existed in 82, if they would have gone that route. I would like to think no, but, you know, who knows? I mean, they did it out of a need to, rather than maybe a want to or a desire to, but now it's like the gold standard for that type of, you know, design or movie. So yeah,
I just can't believe, like, why wouldn't they want to release at least in a copy of the film where you could just, like, you know, like a subtitles or something, just like turn off the CGI. It's right there. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that. Like, they edited it a certain way, or like they would have to go back through and like re-edit the film, not like cut things, but, you know, like take the original footage and, like, you know, basically dial it back from all the work they did, and then like re-edit the, like, cell by cell.
Exactly. Yeah. Go through. There's probably a lot of color balancing, a lot of final touch stuff that they would have to completely redo if they were to like go to an earlier cut.
It really boggles my mind. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a related tangent, but you know, the motivation behind this, you know, is the bottom line. You know, the executives, the studio executives are like, you know, we need to make the most amount of money, you know, and it's like, you know, we're aficionados, you know, you've got the critics who are, you know, paid to look at this stuff, but you got to wonder, does the CG really reach the broadest audience? Like, you know, if you ask, you know, Joe Schmo coming out of the movie in 2011, like, what did you think of The Thing? He's like, wow, that was amazing. The special effects were crazy. And then you show him the 82 thing. What is he really going to like the CG version better? You know, and I mean, if it's an issue of, it can't be an issue of, we're going to shoot the, you know, do we shoot practically or digitally? Because you've already shot the scenes practically. it's already done. You've already paid the company to come in and build these creatures. It's the money's spent. So now you're going to pay another company or pay somebody else to do it all digitally. Like, you're like really like doubling down on the shit here. Like,
especially because good CGI is very expensive.
oh yeah.
So it's either they're banking on this CGI making the movie so much better that it's worth it.
Or they're just paying people to have bad CGI.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what happened in the 2011 The Thing.
Because you spent your special effects budget on doing the special effects twice.
Yeah, exactly. And the CGI, I mean, you know, that's kind of one of the criticisms you see levied at it is that, you know, it's this really cool, like, story and, you know, the performances are good and everything else, but it looks like, you know, Sci-Fi Channel original movie.
Yeah,
grade
like, do you want it to
CGI.
look good or do you want it to look like a Scanner Darkly?
That's literally why I haven't seen it yet.
Well, you know, I watched it again in preparation for this just because I remember watching it in 2011. I didn't go see it in theaters, but as soon as the Blu-ray came out, I rented it, I watched it, and I was just blown away initially at all of the little details that they added. Like, the way that they created the prequel thing was they went, and they even said they, in one of the, commentaries, that they approached the original 82 The Thing as, like, they were, like, forensic investigators at a crime scene. Like, the way the scene was shot, you know, you see the scene where, like, Kurt Russell's character walks down the hallway and there's an axe in the doorway. Well, they made a note of that, and based off of how everything was laid out in those scenes, they created that Norwegian base. I think, because, like, we were watching it, and I told Colin, I was like, check this out, you know, when this scene happens, and they go into, after they take the alien out of the ice, and they put it in that room, like, they recreated that room, like, down to, like, the janky, like, 2x4s that they use for the railing and the wood paneling on the walls, and, like, it was the same room. Where the alien burst out of the ice, like, you know, and you had the parts of the roof hanging down, like cables and everything else. They recreated that to the T. They explain how the axe got in the wall. They explain how, you know, the one character they find in the chair with his, you know, wrist slit and everything else like that. Like, they cover it. Like, they explain all that stuff. And to me, that was a really cool way to kind of go about making a prequel. Because here you've got this really strong, really strong subject that kind of started in this way that always made people go, well, that's interesting. Like, what happened before that? Like, who are those guys in the helicopter? Like, what happened at the Norwegian base? Yeah. But it was never, like, really explained. Like, no one, you know, there was, you know, I'm sure probably fan fiction or maybe a comic or something like that someone came up with. But, like, to develop something like that many years later and still have it be more or less pretty seamless and explain a lot of things in more or less satisfying way was cool. Like, it was really, I mean, you couldn't do that with every property because I don't think every property gives you as much leeway or as much of a good foundation as the Thing, 82 Thing, did for the 2011 one. So the story itself was really cool and well done, but it was just the biggest part of it, which is the creature, they botched. They botched it. Maybe they had good intentions initially, but
yeah. And how do you guys feel about John Carpenter? I mean, I've never really been his biggest fan, to be honest.
Really?
No. I shouldn't say I liked, but I was entertained by Escape from New York and Escape from LA. I never was a Halloween fan.
What?
It's not my cup of tea.
Yeah. Speaking of Halloween, this is the Halloween episode.
Maybe.
It definitely has got to be.
Well, it might go up by like Christmas or so.
Oh, dude, I mean, it's cold, you know. Baby, it's Halloween outside.
They live is great.
Nah, I mean, I'm not. I'm just not his biggest fan. But I would have to say The Thing is my favorite John Carpenter film.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I'd probably say that.
He was a consultant on Fear 3.
Oh, well, I think he also did some voice work for Yu-Gi-Oh! So let's keep going. I also would say I love the cast. Wilford Brimley. I mean, he's like one of my favorite actors.
But yeah.
Ice Brimley.
No, but Kurt Russell.
What a choice.
I don't even think he was acting.
What a beard.
I don't think he had a script. I think they just put Kurt Russell there, and that's how he reacted to the situation. And they just had cameras rolling.
We went back and rewatched the scene, not necessarily by our choice, but nonetheless, rewatched the scene about 6 times where he goes into the kitchen, gets a beer out of the fridge, and then all of a sudden he hears an outside perspective of when
he hears all the dogs barking.
The dogs are barking and going nuts because the dog that's infected is in there. Or the dog that is recreation of a dog is in there, and it's starting to unsettle the dogs. And he hears the dogs going nutso in there, and he just takes his beer and he breaks
smashes
the fire alarm with the beer. we all just lost it.
We watched it so many times because my Blu-ray kept skipping.
Okay, so that reminds me of the one thing that after rewatching it enough times, I finally noticed, and it kind of bothered me, was immediately after that scene, before anybody even sees the monster, apparently they asked for the flamethrower. So they just heard the dogs bark and they knew something was wrong, and it was like, get the flamethrower.
Come on, advance the plot already.
Here's the thing, is I think Kurt Russell said that was because when they went to the Norwegian base, the monster-ish grotesque thing they found was crisp.
Yeah, it was burnt.
That's true.
That's true. You know?
Fair.
So he was just like, oh, maybe that's what they did to win. They burned
Just
it.
another reason Kurt Russell is a total badass.
Yeah.
He knew it before even I knew it. Yeah.
Except he's terrible at chess.
Okay, you try to beat a chess machine.
He's terrible at chess, but he's great at whiskey.
Me too.
He gave that chess robot what for?
I want a chess robot.
Poured it right in its processor.
What for?
Yeah.
No, but there was some other. Thanks, Mark. There's some Keith David. Big fan of Keith David.
Oh yeah, he's. Have you seen
A
They
young
Live?
Keith David.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing movie. Roddy Piper.
Did you ever play Mass Effect 1, 2, or 3?
This is a dumb question because I should know this, but I'm drawing a blank and I don't have any type of media in front of me. That was a Carpenter movie, wasn't it?
Actually, I believe it is. If I'm not
because
mistaken.
when we're talking about John Carpenter, I was going to bring that up, but I didn't want to sound ignorant. I'm pretty sure that's a John Carpenter movie.
It's too late.
They Live.
They Live.
They live.
Yeah, I said that like
Absolutely.
he was like
Johnny Carperoni.
I've never been a big fan of John
It
Carpenter.
is.
I said I love They Live.
Oh, I didn't catch that, but I try not to listen to you whenever you talk.
Good choice.
I understand.
We also
Me
suggest that for all listeners.
But, well, no, so, like,
I actually just cut myself out of the podcast when I'm doing editing. So
Everyone else is telling
no one
him to
knows
cut.
what you're talking about. I don't even exist in the podcast.
I think
really.
John Carpenter, I know we're talking about Keith David, but I'm going to do a little John Carpenter aside now that I've confirmed that They Live is John Carpenter. Like, that to me is John Carpenter's thing, or it was his thing when he was still kind of in his prime as a filmmaker. He was making these movies that would be kind of construed as like a mainstream, horror movie or a mainstream science fiction movie or, mainstream action movie. But he was kind of imbuing them with like kind of the big ideas. So you've got like The Thing where, like you said, McCarthyism and that whole type of, who's your neighbor? Is your neighbor a good person? Is he the enemy? That type of Monsters Are Due on Maple Street and all that sort of stuff. Like you have that vibe. Then you have They Live, which is all just kind of a riff on like consumerism and just blindly believing whatever they're selling you. They, and then like Escape from New York. Kind of imagining this like dystopian. future where you've got just massive, prison cities and all this other stuff. Like, a lot of it is kind of cheesy in the way that it's done, and those movies are very dated to the decade that they came out in.
Oh yeah.
But they're cool ideas. I mean, he was trying to do something different, which I can give him credit for. But I think the cast was just absolutely phenomenal because you believe everyone that's on that base. In a way, it's like, I don't want to say it's like poor man's Alien because that sounds bad, but like it is. It's the same type of cast. It's the everyman, working man. None of those guys are no highfalutin scientists or anything like that, except the few that are. But like they're still kind of more grounded, and they're not
the one guy who with like paramilitary training kind of thing. He's like an older guy who's still jumpy. Like there's nobody who feels confident in what they're doing. It's either aggression or fear that's pushing everybody to do what they're doing. Except for Wilford Brimley, which no, I guess that was a lot of fear. That was a lot of fear, him running.
His motivation's diabetes. So.
No, yeah.
He punched a few numbers, and then it told him how fast the entire world population would be infected by this virus.
Hey,
10 hours.
Man, computers were crazy in 1980. They could do some crazy
If
shit.
you think they're crazy now. They've gotten worse since then.
You should have seen the Commodore 64.
Goddamn Windows 10.
Ruining it.
Doesn't even have chess on it.
Did anyone notice anything about the score that stood out to them, or would you say it was pretty standard?
I scored
It's a
by
great
watching
score.
this movie.
It's an Ennio Morricone
love
score,
it.
which a lot of people overlook, but it's phenomenal.
That is most standout work.
Well, no, it is though, if you think about it, because one of the things that he did in this, myself being a soundtrack guy, everything has a theme, which is really cool.
Yeah.
You don't really see that much in movies anymore, but everything has a theme. And what I think was interesting is, and a lot of things have been kind of written about it, this was Ennio Morricone creating a score for a film.
To Enya's father, right?
Yes. Someone, no one told him, oh, do, spaghetti western or do Ecstasy of Gold or whatever. It was John Carpenter basically telling him, I have these ideas, musical ideas, this really stripped down kind of bare bones stuff, the heartbeat, that type of stuff. And Ennio Morricone doing that, being very minimalistic. And that was John Carpenter's influence because, as you guys may or may not know, he did a lot of the music in the movies he directed.
He's got several albums out that's just him.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was kind of cool.
In fact, he's done the score for more things than he's actually directed.
Looking at his filmography, his IMDb page,
Yeah, which is cool. You've got this acclaimed composer, widely regarded as one of the greatest composers in film.
Oh, yeah.
And, he's just kind of taking cues from, John Carpenter, who I would say, in terms of musical talent, he knows what he wants. He's got a very particular sound, but it's just kind of cool. It was definitely a collaboration of those two musical kind of forces together to make this really minimalistic, kind of unsettling, atmospheric type score. Which is another thing that they tried and failed to do in the prequel.
Oh.
That's about right.
So, what do you guys think?
Jason was making a point.
I think
I was making a point, but the point is gone.
Got it.
Miller,
Yes.
would you say this was good sci-fi or bad sci-fi?
Oh my lord. Let me tell you. This is I think I've rated pretty much every sci-fi I've been an episode. Every sci-fi, for every episode I've been on is pretty great sci-fi, but this is like top tier horror sci-fi. You've got Kurt Russell's acting chops with
Wilford Brimley.
With Wilford Brimley's diabetes chops. And then when you combine those two chops with John Carpenter's directing chops, it's
Wait, so there's 3 chops.
There's three main chops.
At least 3.
There's at least, so you've got these 3 main chops.
Did anyone in the movie have mutton chops?
A lot of beards. I don't think any mutton chops.
Did not Wilford Brimley have
No, he was
sideburns?
pretty much shaven. Yeah, clean shaven.
He had a mustache.
I mean, lots of people have sideburns.
You got Ennio's musical chops.
You got Ennio's music chops. It's just it knocks it out of the park, you know.
You'd almost say it chops it out of the park.
It chops it out of it takes a flamethrower to mediocrity.
Those dog chops were pretty sweet.
Okay. So
yes, it's absolutely top tier
You're gonna
sci-fi.
chop it.
all right. Jason.
I agree wholeheartedly with Miller there. It's fantastic sci-fi. Magnanimous. Boisterous sci-fi.
Magnanimous.
It is. It truly is, because it's an exploration of a theme, which is what good sci-fi is.
Yes.
And it does that very well. But it's also a good example of, as you said, horror sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's one of the best examples. I think it's it isn't regarded, I don't think, as like ubiquitously with like an Alien as like a classic of cinema, but in terms of a science fiction horror film, it's right up there. I'd put it right up there with Alien, just for what it accomplished and what it tried to do, and the setting, the atmosphere, everything. So it's fanciful sci-fi.
That's some pretty high praise there.
Yeah.
Matt.
I would say it's very good sci-fi. It's a movie that I remember more the horror themes of it, but after rewatching it enough times, you really do catch all the little extra things they add that, in my mind, make a good sci-fi. All the little hints toward the alien stuff, all of the trying to learn more about it, the adding a little more science to it. It kind of, I don't know, it creates more of a world around it, even though the location is so isolated. And to me, that makes it great sci-fi.
Marky Mark.
Oh, I love this movie. I've grown up with this movie because my dad also loved this movie, and we just watched it all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's so thematic and like heavy, and Jason left me nothing to gawk over. It's tough. It's just It just off.
Oof. Official off.
Can we edit all those together?
Like
Whoops.
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh.
That's a solid 2 oohs.
Three oops up.
Oh boy.
Do you have any more oofs to add?
Colin?
Hopefully
a more coherent Colin.
As soon as he went, I was waiting for.
this movie actually is really exceptional because I like a movie that doesn't cover just one genre. It's covered multiple at one time. Science fiction, mystery, horror. It's all there.
Diabetes.
Romantic comedy.
In terms of it being science fiction, I would say it's great science fiction, fantastic science fiction. You see a spaceship in the ice. You see an alien, and especially the science that Wilford Brimley is conducting in that laboratory is very, very fiction. It's science fiction. It's great science fiction. At the end of the day, no, I truly do love this movie. So, if anyone else has, if you haven't watched it yet, we didn't spoil anything for you. So,
Actually, yeah, we didn't.
we didn't even mention which characters are left at the end.
Wow, that's a first.
No characters died. Everybody got out of fine.
No,
They figured
that's
out
pretty-
who it was, and they got him before anybody else got hurt.
Wow.
And then once the puppies were born, it just really
It was
became a feel-good
heartwarming.
film.
101 Thingmations.
I heard this was actually a prequel to Love Actually.
See, I heard
Actually-
it was a sequel to Balto.
I can see that.
Yep.
Sequel to Balto, prequel to Love Actually. All still works in the horror science sci-fi
Yep.
genre.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, all right, boys and girls. I think that's all we got time for. So, yeah. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye bye. Pass me the whiskey.
Print.